All right, Viktor. He's been at the center of a bunch of drama recently because of his rework, matching him up with his arcane iteration, and leaving the League of Legends one behind. People have been very, very split and very mad about the whole situation. In this video, I'm gonna try to give some insight into why it is that people understandably are upset about losing old Viktor, and what the good things about them about each of them are, what the bad things about each of them are, and try to give like a more holistic view of the entire situation, because a lot of people seem to sort of lock their minds in like us versus them sort of battle, where they kind of just don't really think about the opposite side of the coin and you know those actual reasons, and sort of just paint each other as idiots. So my attempt is going to be to try to make it a little more understandable for each part, to see why the other one likes Viktor and what the genuine problems with the rework are, because I don't think a lot of people have talked about this specific, at least the specific reasons that I think the Viktor rework is an issue. So to start off, let's talk about the table of content. We're going to be talking about Viktor's old lore and then evaluating his old design. Then we'll move into his new design. We won't be going over arcane lore because there's just so much, and I am pretty sure we all have seen arcane at this point, so we know Viktor's lore, right? We know, hopefully, the themes of his character and generally just what it is that he goes through, so I won't be going over that too much. Then I'll be talking about why it's a problem that we lose old Viktor, how people are reaching the wrong conclusions about the issues, and then we'll sort of conclude the entire video in the final segment, right? So Viktor's old lore: he's a guy who wants to make work safer and help people. So he creates solutions. He's invited into Piltover, meets Jace. They disagree on ethics. He's expelled because of his ethics. He then tries to save people again by himself. He needs some power to do it, breaks into Jace's lab to steal the crystal, proceeds to save people. Jace breaks into the lab to get the crystal back. Then Jace ruins the lab, takes the crystal, kills the people Viktor tried to save by, accident, because by ruining the lab, he kills them by extension, right? And now Viktor understands that humanity is inherently flawed, and to surpass it, he needs to become machine. Very simple. I literally just wrote everything down and just said it out loud. It's perfect. But no, these are like the fundamentals of Viktor's old lore. A lot of people have been very displeased about Viktor changing because they have some sort of belief that the lore is one of the issues. I can already tell you that it's not. That like most of who Viktor is as a person is actually the same in arcane, really. There's some slight differences and there are some story points that are different, but like he's still kind of the same guy, right? We meet Viktor at a point in life where we don't even know if he has already tried to create solutions down in Zorn, but it is to be assumed that he already has tried to do some good work to like save people, right? Especially spending time with Sinch, I suppose he's been sort of a mentor for him, right? So I'm not going to, I want to hear arguments for why you think it's an issue about his old lore changing. To me, I really don't see it, and I think it's like sort of a misconception people have about their feelings about the entire situation, and then sort of like throwing collateral damage grenades at the old lore, right? And the new lore not being the same, because they are sort of the same people. Anyway, Viktor's old design. Does he look like what he's supposed to be? So Viktor is a misunderstood hero from his own perspective. He's an inventor. He is the machine herald, which is pretty important, right? He's trying to reach inhumanity by gloriously evolving or whatever. And his whole theme is cyborg, body mods, and augmentation and transhumanism, right? So I'm using his old splash art here in his in-game model, which looks terrible. I also have his updated, so don't worry. We are going to be going through a few of the different designs that we have for him, right? But to start off, does he look like a misunderstood hero? He definitely doesn't look like a hero, just like right off the bat. So I suppose yes, Viktor does look like someone who is a bad guy, and his story does reflect that he is actually supposed to be a good guy. So yes, sure, that fits right in. He looks, generally speaking, very cartoonishly evil. Also, his voice filter. I'll try to play some of his voice lines if I have the time to like edit them in. I can't guarantee that, but like it's function over form. You know, it's kind of just he sounds extremely evil. So yeah, I mean they sure did they sure did reach. You know, they sure did succeed on that point, I suppose. The important thing is also to like sort of notice that the character was written as like a genuine just bad guy, right? I don't fully remember Victor's old lore, but he wasn't supposed to be a misunderstood good guy. I'm pretty sure. As far as I recall, he was just a pretty bad guy, and he was just kind of evil. He just make some inventions, you know, be a scientist, and be all around kind of evil. Um, and that's from the perspective for which he was designed, right? And also his voice filter, like in general, all that stuff, which also is an issue because his voice does not show a misunderstood hero at all. Like, yeah, sure, he sounds evil. Well, you could make arguments for it, but in my opinion, if you are going to create a character who is a misunderstood hero, you need to sort of show it in some way. And I think going so aggressively on his voice it's something that you can do, but you need to genuinely show that he's a good guy. And the only thing we really have is a cape, and a cape isn't inherently a good guy thing. So can't really give them a lot of points for that one. But he definitely looks like something that he's not, which is really bad guy. Does he look like an inventor? Yeah, I mean, he has technology strapped to himself, right? He has the Tesla coil adjacent stuff. That's like both of those elements, like the arm and his staff. They are. That's straight up, yeah, inventor stuff. It makes sense for him to be an inventor, or rather, he looks like someone who is some kind of inventor, right? Some criticisms I do have is that his entire armor piece or whatever it is, like the face and his chest plate, doesn't actually inherently look that technological. The only reason we read it as being technological is because of like the rest of Viktor. We kind of understand who he is, and we see the splash art. We see that it's like industrial in the background. We see that he's using the laser, right? A laser is inherently kind of technological. We know that he has a Tesla coil thing, staff in hand. We can sort of see that one of his hands is kind of mechanical. If we go to some of the newer iterations of Viktor's design, oh wait, sorry, you weren't supposed to see that. But some of the newer iterations of Viktor's design, we can also see that he looks a lot more technological, right? But right here, he's just obviously he's very outdated in the very old iteration, right? But just yeah, it's not a good way to show necessarily that it's technology at all. Actually, it looks really bad. But we can make out that he is supposed to be somewhat of an inventor. He looks like, what do you say, like an evil Iron Man or something, like Doctor Doom, and if he was, I don't freaking know, if he was supposed to be Iron Man or something like that, right? Those are probably also some of the characters he took some inspiration from. So, Machine Herald. He's supposed to be heralding machines, the age of machine. All right, now we're getting into the territory where old Victor just completely falls flat on so many points. So first of all, we'll be addressing these a little bit later. My main focus is going to be on this art piece because this is like the updated version that is supposed to be sort of in tune with his story and sort of just, try and do the best it can with the original character design to try and like update it and make it aesthetically pleasing. Right, so Herald of Machines, he has a staff. That's that kind of is like something a herald would have, right? That's it. Also, another baffling thing: if you are the herald of machines, shouldn't you be a machine yourself? And you might say, well, he's a cyborg. Yeah, about that. I don't see it. I gotta be completely honest. If I didn't know who Victor was, I would think this is a suit or an armor. Like his chest plate does not look like anything that's like. This also brings to the next point. I'll just sort of include it in this one, but like the cyborg body mod and augmentation, transhumanism kind of thing. His breastplate does not, or rather, his body does not look like it's inherently technological. It looks like he has grafted, or not even grafted, just that he's wearing something. His faceplate also doesn't look like it's grafted onto him. It doesn't look like something a cyborg would have. It doesn't. It looks like a face mask for something because he might have burned himself when he was younger or something that he had to replace it. Oh, well, okay, not replace, but like have a mask on to breathe. It looks sort of Darth Vader-ish. His hand, which is supposed to have been replaced, it's more apparent in newer art of him, but it just looks like a gauntlet. His other like even you can see it on this arm, right? It looks like a gauntlet that he's wearing, and beneath the gauntlet where his arm is, it's just a regular arm covered in cloth. And on the other arm, you have an actual metallic, supposedly robot arm. I can't really tell now in newer iterations. Once again, it is clear that it's supposed to be a robot arm, but it's organic. It sort of looks like it once again could be plating or like leather even. And then he has a normal hand. So Victor has a robot hand, but then he has a normal hand. Then he has a robot arm, and then he has a normal arm. It doesn't. I don't. It doesn't make sense to me. He's not covering the back of his head, which is where his brain is located. Like, guys, his most important, most vital organ is not being fully protected because he wants to show his luscious locks. What about his leg? He hasn't done anything to his legs. Well, that's a lie because he's wearing a brace. The transhumanist who focuses on body modification and replacing limbs has a leg brace. Because why? Are you chasing pussy with your fancy leg brace, Victor? Is that it? Wait, no, that can't be the case because you're also wearing like a metal skirt. No one would think that's attractive. Like, you are supposed to be heralding machines. So why aren't you a machine yourself? This is also the idea of like, he's supposed to be good. the glorious, well, or rather, he is supposed to be the gloriously evolved or whatever. He is the herald of the glorious evolution. He wants to evolve people to a point where they surpass human needs. If you're going to surpass being a human, you are no longer human. That's like the essential baseline idea of what that concept is supposed to be. You want to evolve beyond it. So why do you at all still look like a human? Because, like, the important thing to realize is if a human was evolved to, like, surpass humanity or whatever, like, to the utmost point of evolution, and you cannot get any further than that, you have reached the pinnacle. If that's the case, then you literally can't do anything. Now, anything that machine can like allow you to do, right? Machinery. But the thing is, machinery is the same as magic when it comes to like what it can do in fantasy worlds. Machinery and magic can do the exact same thing in fantasy world. It's just that the thematics of like the aesthetics of them are very, very different. And we'll get into that further down the line. But Victor, tell me, why don't you have some kind of shape? Why aren't you a machine that can adapt to anything it comes into contact with? A machine that has removed so much of humanity from himself that he no longer is human in any way. You don't have emotions. You don't care about a human body like at all. You're not supposed to look like this. You don't want to, literally. And that's one of the big issues about Viktor. He ultimately cannot ever be what he is supposed to be. Not like this. He, like, fucking Viktor's ideal design or whatever, like, if he's really supposed to be something that has evolved beyond humanity, then it's an Oriana ball. Like, okay, you're a floating ball that can sort of transform and adapt to every possibility. So he's like, yeah, I don't know, transforming sort of, what is that called? Like nanotech bullshit. I don't fucking know. But like, come on. And that's a massive flaw about like the concept of being the concept of the glorious evolution is very flawed because of that specific thing, right? But yeah, it does not look like you've replaced most of your body. It does not look like even the body modification augmentation thing. The extra arm you have on your shoulder is literally just a device. It's not. It's nothing about your own body. It doesn't have anything to do with it. You've just grafted like an office lamp on top of your shoulder, and then you put a fist on it that can shoot a laser. Oh yeah, that's gonna help people, Victor. You're right. Sorry, my bad. I misjudged you. You look like a bad guy, but of course your hand can help people, right? Because it's efficient to have a large arm that shoots a laser strapped to your shoulder. And not only is it strapped to your shoulder because it has to be efficient, you have like a massive metal pauldron with some kind of super energy inside of it. And just to to the people that say that probably doesn't weigh that much, I'll just show these pieces of art because it looks pretty heavy. And then you might say, well, he's probably pretty strong. He's made of metal, right? Yeah, and about that, he's still is he? Like, if you take a look at his arm, that's a human arm. That's a robot fist. That's a human fist, and that's a robot arm. Like, I don't know where the logic is, Victor. I'm sorry. This still looks like a chest plate. And this still doesn't look like it has replaced his face or whatever. It looks like he can like pull it up like an Iron Man suit that it can open up and like show his face. People have even made fan art of like the original Arcane Victor, like sort of opening his face thing, or at least not having it on, because like it just looks like something that he could take off. So yeah, Victor, you do not look like what you're supposed to be. I'm sorry, but you just don't. And in fact, you fail miserably at most points. Because like you could it's fair enough. Like even if he looked perfect in every other regard, but like the glorious evolution, human shape, you know, transhumanism kind of thing. Even like the argument with the Oriental Ball, right? Even if you are never going to reach that kind of design, you could still be a really good design. You still could be a really good design, right? Still could be. But you fail on so many points that there's just nothing that saves it, except one thing. Once again, we'll get to that later, but there is one thing that makes Victor so fucking cool, which completely saves him. And it's actually, I'll spoil a little bit. You're looking at it right now, but it's incredible. I'll as I said, I'll get to that later and discuss that. But really, he's being saved by a few things that people have grown very attached to. So, new Victor. Well, that doesn't look very good. That looks very pixelated. Doesn't matter. It's fine. So the story of New Victor, just to go over it real quick. Arcane, he got to Piltover, made Hextech along with Jace. He just wants to help people. He's killed. He's resurrected. Goes back to try and help people. He did the Hex Core thing, and it sort of corrupts him in a way, and he comes to realize that a big issue with humanity is that, well, is emotion. So he gets rid of his own and saves everyone else from themselves because he can fix all of their flaws, which he does. And then he realizes, well, fuck, when you fix all the flaws, when you fix all the flaws, suddenly, life sort of isn't really that much fun. So, does he look like a misunderstood hero from his own perspective? He certainly looks like someone who really thinks that he's very important and he paints himself like a hero. Yeah, sure. In fact, a savior. In fact, a god. In fact, he is very trying to be very pretentious about that thing. So, yeah, he has like a bunch of iconography that's sort of religious, right? He has, first of all, the halo behind his head. He doesn't have it right here. He's sort of like his mask imitates a bit of it, but it's not really the whole thing. But he does have robes. He has the staff, the magical staff. He has the bracelets around his arms, which could be akin to either halos or some kind of just in general religious jewelry. It could be like priestess cuffs. And you could also view it as some kind of Doctor Strange kind of magic stuff, right? Or even, what are they called? Prayer beads, even. Like religious people from typically the East have some prayer beads around their wrists, right? Sometimes, anyway. And it could kind of be akin to that. Other than that, he's also like, yeah, I think like the robe as another point, I did I just say, I don't know if I did, but I'll mention it again. Like the robe is a really good indicator of his godlike status, right? Or rather, his sort of prophet machine, or well, in this case, arcane herald, right? He's a herald, so yeah, he does look like a herald. Also, the machines, very interestingly, his machines that are perfect are basically his angels, right? So he's God and they are his angels. He looks like a mage, yeah. He does look like a mage. He also does look like he's technological because he looks like a technological mage. You could definitely say that. A mix between the two, definitely. There's a bunch of metal on him. There's a bunch of iconography of not only like the arcane, but it's shaped in a way that it mimics um, stuff like cogs and wheels and technology and the way that fits, or rather is put together. He looks metallic, and he definitely looks like he's not fully a mage, but that he has like a technological origin. An inventor turned religious figure. Well, that's just those are basically the points I've already covered, right? He looks exactly like those things. He looks like he has the technological background. He looks like he's a religious figure, which is also magic adjacent. Um, yeah, sure. I mean, he sort of look like you could argue that he looks like an inventor. You could also argue that he doesn't, or rather that it's not directly shown. But I think the arm is enough, even though it's sort of created after he turned into whatever he is now, right? Inhuman, gloriously evolved, and religious figure. I have written religious figure way too much, haven't I? Whatever. Does he look like he is gloriously evolved? So, short answer, absolutely. If we take a look at Victor's face, obviously the one of the coolest things about him is that he has split his face open to reveal his true face, which is like this sort of geometrical, very, very metal shape, like very inhuman shape that doesn't really have any soft, well, once you get into like the hair metal piece or whatever the fuck, sure it gets softer, but the face itself is very rigid. It's very like metallic. It's very, there's not a lot of room to express emotions apart from the eyes. I actually think that's potentially a weak point, but you can't really remove the eyes without removing the identity of Victor. So ultimately, it's fine. But like, he doesn't show a lot of emotion anyway with his eyes. But the thing is, he has split humanity away from himself. From himself, his face, his like new inhuman machine self, his perfect design has taken over, and you can sort of see with the desaturation also that Victor's old face or old identity even is dead now, right? It's gone. There's only the transhumanist, the glorious evolution now, where he has removed emotion from himself. From himself, he has reached the pinnacle of perfection. He has no flaws left. You can also see this in the rest of his body, right? It's still organic, but it's very, very clearly been extremely modified, um, like to a like a complete biological level, where even though it sort of looks like it still looks like he was human once, he definitely isn't anymore. And he looks like he has surpassed humanity. That's the entire idea, right? He split like he removed his humanity, and his real identity came out to the world, which is this emotionless machine. Some of the issues, however, question is the same as the other Viktor. Why do you look like that if you are supposed to be the utmost glorious evolution, right? Nothing can surpass you. You have reached the absolute pinnacle. And there are a few reasons why. First of all, it has to pay respect to Viktor, and Viktor is still a human, or rather, he's human shaped, right? So it has to pay respect to that, and he has to still be like a human character. And I mean, it's fine because like the thing that this Viktor does is that he uses magic to make sure that everything is perfect. He doesn't have to change his body because he can already do everything else anyway, right? This is like his godlike status, right? He doesn't actually have to change his shape to do specific things. He already is perfect. And some of the issues that we get into, should we wait with that? I think we'll just go to the next slide, because that's when we get to it. Why losing old Viktor is a bad thing, and how people misunderstand their own feelings. So, losing Viktor is bad for everyone. The lore fans, the ones that only have seen Arcane, even, the League of Legends fans, the Viktor fans, the ones that really like New Viktor, the ones that really dislike New Viktor. It sucks for everyone. And the reason people sort of, I also mentioned this earlier, but they sort of ignore each other's points and each other's like not necessarily the points, but like the perspectives, because the points are typically very bad. People are emotionally invested, and they just throw logic out the window, and they think they are using logic, and they just throw out the most idiotic arguments you've ever read. But the perspectives, this is like a devil's advocate sort of view on things. Look at both perspectives and then just compare what you think, right? And a lot of people sort of don't do that because of the us versus them mentality. Viktor's design was really bad, so what is it that makes people so passionate about him? Yeah, what is it? Because he looks like shit here, right? I swear to God, I want the numbers of when this splash art was released. I want the numbers for Viktor afterwards and before. And I want to specifically know about, this is something that's impossible to gather unless you do some very specific stuff that's very complicated. But I want to know people's feelings about him after he got this splash art, because this splash art is so fucking insane. It's so good. It is so insanely well made. So fucking well made. And it single-handedly, trust me on this, it single-handedly fucking saved Viktor for like at least 7 years. Well, even more actually. Ever since it was made, I think that's even 7 years ago, approximately, probably. But like something along those lines. This is it's so good. This image conveys a very specific feeling. It conveys the feeling of someone who's robust, someone who's mechanical, someone who is very, he's sort of like, he has the imagery of like, he looks evil, right? And that is the power fantasy that he proves is really cool. He looks technological, like very technological, despite the fact that he doesn't really make sense, and you can't really tell what the different pieces on him are. The aesthetic is what matters. It's the shape language that matters. It doesn't matter if you can recognize this as machine or not. If you're told that it's machine, you go like, oh yeah, sure, sure. No, I believe in that. I trust that. I can see it. Because you can feel it from the vibes and from the aesthetic that he's giving off. And those vibes and aesthetic are the most important thing about Viktor, because his design is shit, but he still manages to be such a cool character only on behalf of aesthetic. And that's partly because he's the only champion in League of Legends that can actually convey this. And that's why now that he's gone, it's really bad for everyone. Because this thing, not the Viktor you're looking at, but the aesthetic of what is going on, the feeling of what you're looking at, isn't going to return to League of Legends, most likely anyway. I have unlimited doubts that Riot would ever try to do this again, because they just don't value this kind of design anymore. They don't value the kind of character design that actually tries to tell sort of a deeper story, or be different in a way, or be have some unappealing elements, not necessarily poorly designed or like bad character design, but have elements that aren't meant to be super attractive. They don't really do that anymore. And I am so sure, because of how chaotic the design of Viktor is, I'm incredibly sure that they won't try to go in this direction with any character again. Because that just does not bring in as much money, right? Most of the most recent characters for years now have been cash grabs. And of course it sucks for Viktor mains, because like even if a new character like this comes out, it's not going to be the same for them. And sure, we get that, but for all of us, we are going to lose this aesthetic from the universe. More specifically, we are going to lose, you can't see it in this picture, that kind of sucks, but like the followers of Legends of Runeterra Viktor, that's the aesthetic that we're going to lose. They aren't going to exist anymore. There's like Rumble and Blitzcrank. Those are probably the closest you get to what this Viktor conveys. And that's what is so terrible about losing him. And that's what people also, that's why people are so passionate about it. Because these things actually create feelings. You don't necessarily log into a game and you don't have these thoughts, okay, this is why I like Viktor. You don't actively have those, because it's pretty complicated, and no one just logs into a video game. It sits there for like 2 hours, 3 hours, and just thinks really, really, really thoroughly about, why do I like this character? We were kids, most of us, when we started playing League of Legends anyway. So like, none of us had that on our mind. However, the design works its magic because it works. It makes people actually feel this way, even if they don't know it. It's pure like product manipulation or whatever. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like we got something we loved out of it. People have feelings for Viktor. Some have very specific feelings for Viktor, but most players that really like Viktor have feelings for the character that they see. They have feelings for the aesthetic. And they have combined all of these identity markers onto what is Viktor. That's why people have complained about the lore differences, even though they aren't what actually matters. Trust me, they are not. Like, it doesn't matter that Blitzcrank is no longer a part of his story. And the way that him and Jace break up, that's the new Viktor is much more compelling. And if he looked like an updated version of this, then trust me, you would still like it. because this new story is good. But because that is used as like an identity marker for what Viktor is, suddenly everything about old Viktor becomes important to sort of convey why we are displeased about him changing. And this comes very much down to the fact of the aesthetic of machinery versus magic, right? Because this conveys magic, this conveys technology. And technology and magic in fantasy world, same fucking thing. As like I said this, but I'm gonna say it again. The feelings, like magic, when you think about magic, you see in your peripheral vision, or not your peripheral vision, but like you get the idea of like a wizard with a hat, and then he has a staff, and then he has a coat, or not a coat, but like he has robes, he casts spells, and he has a beard, right? And when you think about a machine, you think about an excavator, or you think about a coffee machine, you think about, I don't know, like a train or a car, like something old that works harmoniously together, but in very mechanical ways. Specifically industrialist stuff, where it's very crude and it's very like bare. It's sort of like an endoskeleton, Five Nights at Freddy's kind of stuff. Like they look very machine, right? They look kind of ugly, but you can sort of see that every part is sort of put together to do something specific. And they aren't made to look appealing, but that in itself is an appeal, right? And that's sort of what Viktor was trying and supposed to, and sort of doing his best to convey. And this new Viktor just doesn't convey the same thing. And that's the biggest issue. Well, the biggest issue, because the importance of or rather the appeal of the old Viktor was the aesthetic, right? And we don't have that in League anymore. So is it bad that we lose old Viktor? Yes. Yes, it is. The reasons why we lose old Viktor are none of the ones you've read online. It's none of the ones. It's because of the aesthetic of what Viktor was, and what the new one is, and what it isn't. That's why it sucks. Because new Viktor is amazing. It's an incredible design. Really good. Probably like 8 or 9 out of 10. If we're gonna be like sort of really critical about it, right? Some people would even say 10 out of 10 if they don't care that much. Meanwhile, this is probably like, I would say like a 2 or 3, maybe 3 out of 10. I think is like reasonable, actually. Yet this one is he's just so charming, right? I mean, he looks like, look at his fucking in-game model. He looks like a kids movie villain from the 2000s, like in a movie about kids trying to save the world from technology or some stuff. Like this looks like some kind of businessman that he wants fame and money. He doesn't care how many trees he's gonna cut down to get it, right? But yeah, the splash shot, fucking, that's so insane. It saves him completely. Because that's such a big part of why it is that we attach the aesthetic that we do to Viktor. So yeah, new Viktor is amazing, but old Viktor sort of can't really be replaced in that way. And that's sort of what sucks. Old Viktor was bad, but he had a unique place in League. No longer occupied. New Viktor is good, but includes another champion's themes. Arcane is really good in isolation from the League universe, but the entirety of the universe is now outdated because of Arcane. And that's the other thing, right? Arcane and League sort of can't really... They should be separate from each other. Now, since they aren't, the new Victor's technically the better design, but it's still regard. Yeah, I know. It makes things so complicated because Victor in Arcane is very different since he's not intruding on any of like the other powerful mages who plan on reaching the ultimate power. That's what he has done. He's a mage that reached the ultimate power, and every mage wants to reach the ultimate power. And well, he did that, and that's okay because there's no one else that's going to do that in Arcane. But now that you include the rest of the universe, quite a few mages that wants to reach the ultimate power. You know, just to mention one, we have Brand, right? Brand is not technological, right? Okay, so they have different aesthetics, but and it's okay. Their lores aren't at all the same, but it's still like he sort of intrudes on that, right? Sort of intrudes in some ways on something like I don't want to say Syndra, maybe Rise a little bit in like the way that his power is used. Yeah, it's rough. Anyway, this is me getting pretty long, and I think I'm gonna finish it up now. I hope I got everything rounded off and I didn't let any storylines go unconcluded. And I hope that I was able to bring some fresh eyes and some fresh points to the discussion about Victor. My intention was not to, be rude or piss anyone off, but I stand by my opinions. If you have anything you want to discuss about, and anything you want to like include or respond, the classic stuff, be sure to do it down below, and I'll see if I can get back to responding to any of it. But other than that, I just want to say thank you very much for watching. I would like to do this more, and also just in general shorter videos where I go into like character design and stuff like that. I think it's really interesting to discuss these League of Legends designs. I think a lot of them are really, really, really cool, and a lot of them are really, really, really bad. So, but yeah, sure. Do let me know what you think.